Hello and welcome to the fifth webinar in our Essentials of Fleet Safety webinar series. The Essentials of Fleet Safety is a series of 5 60-minute webinars to give champions the essential elements of running a fleet safety programme. The webinars are based on the 5 pillars of the Global Fleet Champions campaign. Today's webinar focuses on the vehicle procurement and maintenance pillar. Global Fleet Champions is a partnership campaign administered by Brake, the road safety charity, to prevent deaths, injuries and pollution caused by vehicles driven for work. To learn more about the campaign and what we do, please visit globalfleetchampions.org. At today's webinar, you will learn about the key elements of safe vehicle purchasing and replacement procedures, about the importance of ongoing vehicle maintenance, and the daily checks drivers can undertake to identify any problems with their vehicles before driving them. On your screen now, you should be able to see a multiple choice question poll so we can find out your views on this topic. It is anonymous. Simply select one answer and press submit, and we will discuss the results at the beginning of the Q&A session, which is your opportunity to ask some of today's presenters any questions you might have. You can put forward your questions at any time during the webinar by using the chat box on the webinar panel. Thank you for your time, and the webinar will now begin.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining this session of the webinar, Essentials of Fleet Safety 5. I want to talk about vehicle procurement and maintenance in this session, which for everybody out there dealing with any types of fleets is a vitally important part of their fleet running of the fleet, and to make sure they get the best vehicles to do the jobs that are required for their services. So we'll look at initially, when buying vehicles, it's probably worthwhile asking yourself the following 6 questions, which will give you a clearer understanding of the type of vehicles you need to be looking for. So, are the vehicles affordable and within your available budget? Seems a very straightforward question to consider, but it's amazing how many people, and I've probably done it myself a number of years ago, not really considered the overall costing of the vehicles when we're looking to purchase new vehicles. Are the vehicles fit for purpose? Let's not be buying a HGV vehicle where a flatbed is required or a fixed body, and not buying a 4x4 vehicle when a small sort of miniature company car is required for travelling around city centres. Very obvious one. Are the vehicles safe for all other road users? May seem strange, but there are a number of considerations which we'll go onto later in this session of things to consider, some of the basic things to consider. Are the vehicles healthy for the drivers? Again, it's not all about the safety of the drivers. Their health is vitally important. Are we buying the correct vehicles for drivers who may be over 6 foot tall, or are the right vehicles for ease of getting in and out and use throughout the day? Are the vehicles safe for the drivers and the passengers? Do the vehicles you're looking to purchase have all the necessary minimum safety requirements that you should be considering? And probably the most vital issue to consider after the purchase of the vehicle is, are they easy to maintain and keep in a safe and fit condition? Again, some obvious things are overlooked when the vehicles are being purchased, and then all of a sudden the cost to keep them on the road is a lot more than what was anticipated. So let's look at these in isolation now, one step at a time. So ensure the vehicles you're buying are affordable but safe. So write down a wish list to manage your expectations through the procurement process. So make sure you can buy and maintain enough vehicles for the budget you have available. So again, we touched on that on the previous slide. It's not just the purchase of the vehicle that's vitally important, it's how much the running costs are thereafter for yourselves. Do the vehicles meet your minimum safety requirements? There are stringent safety requirements and programs out there for fleet purchasing operators, but make sure you have your own minimum requirements in case you cannot afford them the safest vehicles on the road, but meet your minimum safety requirements, and do the vehicles meet your minimum environmental requirements as well. Again, in this day and age, with the environmental issues that we're all faced with, let's not be buying vehicles that are going to be too excessively unfriendly to the greater good of everybody out there. Ensure the vehicles you're buying are suitable. So make sure the vehicles are the correct vehicles for the job you need them to do. As we touched on the introduction, lots of considerations. Make sure you understand which types of jobs you want the vehicles to do, and tick off each one for of your individual requirements as you're looking through the specifications of the vehicles that you're considering. Again, are they environmentally friendly? All vehicles now have their environmental specifications available, so this is something that is easy to understand and work out before you purchase your vehicles. There are numerous global new car assessment programs out there now. Some of them are detailed on the slide for you. These obviously make the condition of buying safe vehicles a lot easier, but again, some of the conditions within the safety process for these vehicles may be over and above your budget requirements, so you need to consider which are your main priorities for purchasing these vehicles to make sure they meet your individual requirements. And then for commercial vehicles, make sure vehicle weighing systems are on board if possible. Is there sufficient and working load securing equipment on the vehicles as well? No point buying trailers that are where you're unable to secure the load properly thereafter, and ensuring that you understand how much weight is distributed across the load bed. And again, for the larger vehicles, is there sufficient all-round visibility? So you can see 360 degrees around the vehicle where necessary. So ensure the vehicles you are buying are healthy and safe for other road users. So again, make sure they have all good round visibility. Again, even for company cars and smaller vehicles, smaller vans, etc., make sure that you can see all the way around them to reduce the exposure and possibility of collisions and injuries for people around the vehicle. Are the vehicles fitted with the correct number of rear view mirrors? Depending on the type of vehicle you're purchasing, there will be minimum requirements for the number of rear view mirrors to see safely around the vehicle. Most vehicles these days have reversing alarms, small and large vehicles. So again, are the reversing alarms fitted and working? Where possible, even are the camera systems working? Even in most small vehicles now, company cars, etc., there are reversing cameras on there. But again, need to make sure these work properly and give sufficient view behind the vehicle. Proximity sensors to determine how close we are to could be road furniture, could be buildings, could be pedestrians, could be cyclists, could be horse riders, could be anybody there moving livestock around as well. Make sure we have proximity sensors so we know what is around the vehicle in difficult viewing situations. And again, probably for the HGVs in particular, are side impact bars fitted to protect cyclists from going underneath the trailers. Next section, ensure the vehicles are healthy for the drivers. This is possibly an issue that is overlooked when buying new vehicles, how healthy they are for the drivers, because they're the ones that are spending most of the time in the vehicles. So it's always worthwhile involving the drivers in the discussion process when procuring new vehicles. Get their wish lists. If you've got the more drivers you have, the more obvious the requirements will be. If they're all doing the same type of job, they will probably have a number of requirements that they all feel are necessary. Some will have different requirements that are individual to themselves, but those that come out with the majority of the same requirements will give you an indication of the type of vehicles to buy. So some of the things you need to consider with your drivers is the comfort for the amount of driving they will do. If we're looking at older vehicles and second-hand vehicles that you may be purchasing, depending what the budget is, no point buying vehicles where seats are not comfortable enough and there's wear and tear on them already. The design of the seat, make sure everything is there from an ergonomic perspective, lumbar support where possible for the drivers in particular. But there are going to be passengers in those vehicles. It may be worthwhile considering those sorts of specifications as well for the passengers. The ergonomic design of the cockpit is vitally important. Ease of getting in and out of the vehicle. We know the larger vehicles, there are a number of steps to get up into the cabs. For the smaller vehicles, are they too low to the ground and to the road surface for the drivers getting in and out easily, which could cause musculoskeletal problems going forward? Once in the vehicle, is there enough freedom of movement? Is it a cramped cockpit, or is the driver able to freely move around in their seat and turn around and move about to see what they need to see? Is the driving position suitable? Is the seat movable? Does it move forward, backwards, up, down, side to side where necessary to give the driver the best position behind the steering wheel? And the accessibility to the controls, are they within hand distance of the steering wheel, or are they separate from the steering wheel where necessary will also make the driving experience better for the driver? And also, are the controls visible? Number of vehicles, most vehicles these days have the steering wheel which can be adjusted height-wise and up and down and forwards and backwards. And some drivers, when they're in the vehicle, put the steering wheel in their best position for them, and it blocks out the immediate visibility of the controls in front of them, which are usually the ones determining what speed you are driving at. So these are some of the main basic things to consider from a driver perspective. So make sure the vehicles are safe for your drivers and their passengers. So simple things to consider, I would recommend these 7 minimum requirements purchasing a vehicle. Seatbelts, we know seatbelts are in every vehicle, but do they work? Make sure all the seatbelts work and are easily accessible from the seating positions. Head restraints, again, should be fitted as standard, and make sure they are there and they are movable and can be positioned to the correct requirements for each individual driver. Airbags, we're not going to test the airbags going off in the vehicle, but obviously your engineers can test through the car's computer systems whether the airbags are in good working order. Is there a spare wheel? And if there isn't a spare wheel, is the necessary emergency equipment in place to re-inflate a wheel that has got a puncher to ensure that you can get to the nearest repair centre? Fire extinguisher. This is probably one of the most overlooked emergency safety pieces of equipment that is overlooked by most vehicle providers and people when they're buying new fleet. Most will come as standard within commercial vehicles these days, but in company car vehicles or your own vehicles, these are things that will often have to be purchased after the procurement anyway. Warning triangle, again, in needs of emergency or breakdown, and a first aid kit just in case of an emergency. It is a valuable piece of equipment to have within the vehicles. And are the vehicles easily maintained and kept safe? So make sure of the following. Drivers carry out regular vehicle inspections between the recommended service periods. Again, this will highlight the need for any immediate repairs that to ensure the vehicle is safe going out on a daily basis. Engineers and mechanics can actually maintain the vehicles. Are there any special requirements for training needed for purchasing of new vehicles that all of a sudden add to the cost of the procurement process? Or are we looking for vehicles that your mechanics have a general understanding of maintenance, that they can maintain any type of vehicle that you're about to purchase? So those vehicles that need special training will need to have the training undertaken by the vehicle manufacturers, so your mechanics can maintain the vehicles, which will add to the expense of the vehicle maintenance. Ensure the vehicle, again, seems a strange one, but make sure the vehicles do not have to be serviced too often if you can make it. Some vehicle manufacturers now insist on servicing every 6 months, but this is not a necessity for yourselves because you're not doing that many miles. Think about vehicles that are serviced per mileage rates to keep the costs down. And replacement parts are not too expensive. As with the engineers, are there any specialist parts that could increase the cost of repairs to the vehicle? And are the parts readily available? There are certain vehicle manufacturers out there that will close for the summer periods still in this day and age, which will make the availability of replacement parts difficult, particularly for over a 6 to 8 weeks summer period. So again, these seem a bit straightforward, but certain things that you do need to consider when purchasing your vehicles. And anything that needs doing to the vehicles, make sure the repairs are completed as soon as possible. And if they can't be completed as soon as possible, make sure the vehicles are taken off the road and that you have some sort of contingency plans in place to ensure that you've got business continuity. So I think these are the main things to consider. From a very basic perspective when procuring and maintaining vehicles, and hopefully this will give you some ideas to consider going forward. So thank you very much.
Good morning, my name is Jack Crosby and I'm the founder of Optimal Fleet Solutions, or OptiFleet for short. And thank you for the opportunity to present to the Great New Zealand Road Safety Charity. OptiFleet's one of New Zealand's lead consultancy businesses, and our vision is focused on running the safest, most sustainable fleet in the world. And our vision is to empower our customers to make well-informed decisions with the provision of mega data. So today I'm going to talk about the purchasing process and the steps that we would follow to empower a buyer to make a really well-informed decision. Traditional buyers typically go out and make decisions on buying around price alone, whereas we focus on what is the safest, most sustainable and most cost-effective solution based upon a life cycle cost. From a safety point of view, for New Zealand, for our customers, we set minimum 5-star safety ratings, which include the maximum number of safety features, including electronic stability programs, ABS brakes, lane change assist, adaptive cruise control. There's a lot of new safety features coming on the road. However, we understand that in other countries, minimum safety features might be as simple as safety belts or side intrusion beams or front and rear collision zone. We're also highly focused in this country on reducing our emissions in either low or no CO2, where an electric vehicle will be fit for purpose. And the other key element here is on the total cost of ownership. I'll just run through the key elements in a bit more detail. So to kick off, before we go to market, we typically suggest that the client audit their current situation. If you have a fleet of vehicles, we would run an independent vehicle register check combined with the national records, and in New Zealand it's the New Zealand Transport Agency, and in other countries obviously do whatever your regulatory providers records where they are held. We confirm the status of the compliance. We document the safety profile, We estimate the CO2 footprint based upon the average CO2 outputs per vehicle. We update the current ODO readings. We develop a 10-year replacement plan. This has got some weighted criteria around age, distance travel, safety, sustainability, and cost. We also provide a net capital replacement cost so that forecasting of replacements can be made. And we also provide a current residual value position based upon a residual value calculation, which is compared to national market sales values. We also pick up on any ownership anomalies, and we report on make model diversity and identify possible EV replacement vehicles or EV candidate vehicles based upon average distances travelled per day. The second phase that we go through is to study a number of key elements. The first key element is to understand and develop a set of fit-for-purpose requirements or specifications that meet your specific needs. So if it's a passenger vehicle travelling on open highways, or if it's a light commercial vehicle going to go off-road, if it needs specialist fit-out. We also, if GPS information is available, we'll study and report on actual utilisation so that we can identify, once again, what's the most fit for purpose vehicle, whether it could be an electric vehicle based upon usage profiles. We'll also review management and administration, and typically with older fleets, they'll be outsourcing or have high FTE equivalents working inside businesses looking after fleets, where we would be promoting purchasing service contracts and warranties for the life of ownership to mitigate those risks and costs. We analyse current costs. We develop a charge rate strategy and a review of considering the EV, and we would promote tracking and charger market reviews also if that is required or not. And then the third phase is optimising, which is the purchasing. So as I mentioned right at the beginning, it's important to have a well-drafted and approved set of vehicle specifications to meet fit-for-purpose requirements, so that when you're talking to the market, you are not going out and making a decision purely upon price, but you're making a decision on what is fit for your purpose and what's going to do the job. Is it going to be safe? And then the next phase is to, once you've drafted the specifications, obtain a range of pricing from either distributors, depending upon what sort of client you are. So typically governments and large corporates would have relationships with distributors, or smaller businesses, SMEs, or private individuals who deal with the dealer market. In this country, the service that we provide for our customers, we supplement that dealer or distributor pricing with our total cost of ownership information, and then compare vehicles in an apples for apples consideration based upon what do they cost to buy, plus what do they cost to run, less the residual value, which is ultimately total cost of ownership. And if one was considering the leasing component, well then first of all you must conduct that total cost of ownership to set the baseline to measure the performance of any lease proposals that you may receive. Also important to understand the impacts of depreciation through that process too. So the total cost of ownership comparison or modelling allows you to compare a range of vehicles side by side and ultimately to make a decision on what is the safest, most sustainable, and cost-effective option to meet your requirements. And then we would draft a bid selection, which is ultimately to develop the orders, agree those bid selections, or ultimately seek order approvals, and then issue the bid selection, which is to place the orders on the either the distributor or the dealer and whoever else might be involved in the ordering process. The benefits of this approach: you can mitigate your risk by ultimately having a reliable asset register that's been checked against your local authorities' records, confirming that what you have is yours and that you don't, and that maybe what you've sold has had a change of ownership and is no longer registered to you. Accurately paying GST in this country, but in obviously in other countries there'll be the taxes that you are required to pay. Knowing that your vehicle compliance and requirements are outstanding, I can comply with, and increasing transparency on the vehicle movements and your driver's behaviour and safety. And ultimately, knowing when it is most economic to either replace vehicles, lease or buy, and to buy EVs rather than fuel-driven vehicles, and invest in charging infrastructure if you do that on the EV right. So yeah, thank you for the opportunity to present this process.
Hello, my name is Phil Lloyd and I'm the Head of Engineering for the Freight Transport Association here in the UK. I've been asked to do a short presentation for you today on vehicle checking and maintenance procedures, a subject that has been a big part of my working life, as I spent over 30 years working in the Department for Transport here in the UK. I started my career with them as a vehicle examiner responsible for MOT testing and roadside inspections of heavy goods vehicles and PS public service vehicles. My last 10 years with the department I spent as a senior manager as the head of policy, the head of operations and head of their transformation. But today I'm wanting to focus on what I see as the basics of good vehicle maintenance, which I think can be viewed in 3 areas. Servicing, which is aimed at maintaining the vehicle or trailer so as to keep it working both efficiently and safely. Depending upon the vehicle or trailer's use, services could be undertaken every 3, 6, 9 or 12 months. And then the safety inspections. These are periodic inspections aimed at identifying the vehicle's roadworthiness condition and levels of wear and deterioration, and to replace or fix any defects. And these are done in between the services. So again, dependent upon the vehicle or trailer's use, these inspections may be undertaken every 4, 6, 8 or 12 weeks. And then there's the driver's daily checks. These supplement both the servicing and safety inspections by identifying defects that may occur during daily use. As the name suggests, these should be done at least daily. The first 2 areas, service and safety inspections, are the responsibility of the owner or operator. The daily checks are the responsibility of whoever is driving the vehicle. However, the overall aim is to ensure that as much as is practically possible that the vehicle and or its trailer is safe to use out on the road. But I'm focusing on just the driver's responsibilities. So what are these? And when should you really be checking your vehicles and or trailers? Well, 3 things. Your daily check, that's the first time you use the vehicle in the day, or if you're on a shift, then it could be your shift because the vehicle may already have been used in that day. Before you take your trailer out, if it wasn't part of your daily check originally, where if you're connecting up to different trailers from the day, then you need to be checking the condition of any trailer that you're pulling and or its load for security, or a change of load. So if you've increased height, length, weight etc., then checking those to make sure that they're both safe, secure. And also when you have some concerns. So when warning lights come on, so that may be your ABS light, tyre pressure monitoring, something like that, or any unusual noises. So you may get some rumbling from maybe one of the tyres, or some part of the vehicle may have broken or be rubbing on something. And when you've left your vehicle, maybe for some time, so that could be at services where others may have been peering inside your vehicle, leaving doors on the catch or cut into the curtains. But what should you check, and what level of inspection? Well, you're not expected to be engineers, so your checks are primarily focused on what is reasonable for a driver to see and to address. There are a number of articles and videos on the subject of drivers' walk-around checks. In the UK, we have the Guide to Maintaining Roadworthiness, which explains a driver's responsibility quite clearly, and it has pictograms in there which make it fairly simple to understand. But there are many others, and I would recommend, even if you don't look at these, that you go onto the internet, Google a few, and check them out, because they can be really useful. But doing walk-around checks and identifying issues is one thing, but you need to record them as evidence of the fact, and there are various ways in which you can do this. But remember, once you take the vehicle onto the highway, you are responsible and can be held accountable. So what should drivers be looking for? Well, as I said, the guides I mentioned earlier will tell you, but I thought I would share with you defects that examiners find at the road that could and probably should have been noticed by drivers. So let's have a look at these. I've put these in some sort of order of magnitude. First thing is tyres. So you need to be checking obviously for tread depth, but also for foreign bodies that might be in the tread. Checking the walls of the tyres to make sure there's no cuts or fabric that you can see hanging out of them, or bulges. So tyres tend to be the biggest issue. The next one from that is wheel security. Again, a lot of vehicles these days, they have little dials on them that tell you the position of the wheel nuts. Don't always take them as being sacrosanct that your vehicle is secure. The picture here is obviously one that's loose. My suggestion then would be, if you're picking up a trailer, then at least be checking these things on the trailer. And braking components. To be honest, it tends to be worse on trailers than it is on vehicles. But again, if you don't look, you'll never see. So if you bob your head underneath, you may find defects like this, where you've got a brake chamber that's completely detached, or similar items such as those. Mudguards, vehicle condition. If you've been off-road, chances are you may have caused some damage. So a quick look around to make sure everything's fine. And lights, both damage and condition. So maybe if you've been reversing, doing some manoeuvres, you may have broken some of your backlights, or some of your front lights might have been hit and smashed off by low-hanging trees. And then finally, suspension. So these are just the main ones, but suspension, a bit like the brakes. Have a look underneath. Quite difficult to see defects from a non-engineer on the mechanical suspension, but a lot of vehicles now are working on air suspension. So a deflated airbag or an overinflated airbag, as in this picture, to give you a good indication of the condition of the vehicle. Predominantly, trailers, again, that suffer mainly from this. And don't forget, nowadays, technology is creeping in more and more. So if you're running modern vehicles, then there's a lot of technology in that. So things like radar and LiDAR systems, which operate emergency braking systems, adaptive cruise control, lane keep, these need to be kept clean and free from any obstructions. There's also other things that are creeping up. So in London, next year they'll be introducing a direct vehicle vision standard. So drivers will need to ensure that the cameras are working, warning signs are available, etc. So this may not be the case for you, but if there's areas that you're moving into that require particular things of vehicles, then you need to check that your vehicles have those things and that they're working. And then here in the UK, flavour of the day is bridge strikes. So there's a lot of issues over bridge strikes. So make sure you're checking the height of your load and or vehicle. You know what that is, and that you're checking it when you go in under any low bridges. Sounds simple, but it's become more and more of a problem. And the simple tip here is those markers that you carry in your cab, just set them at 0 at the end of the day. It will prompt you to check the height of your vehicle or trailer the following day. And if someone else is using your vehicle, then it will give them an idea of the things that they need to do. But the thing to remember, if you don't check your vehicle and someone else does, then you could be looking at fines, vehicle immobilisation, prosecutions, or possibly all three. And if you have a crash, then the consequences could be far greater. But why is it important that vehicles are maintained well and operated correctly? Well, fairly simple really. It keeps you safe as a driver. It keeps other road users safe. It improves your reliability. So well-maintained vehicles will be more reliable and be less prone to breakdowns. And if you're working on a just-in-time delivery, that can be quite helpful. Also, if you maintain your vehicle well, keeping the engine well maintained, having good tyre husbandry, making sure your tyres are inflated correctly, etc., then this will not only reduce the emissions produced by your vehicle, but actually can increase your fuel, can improve your fuel consumption. And obviously, the idea is to prevent incidents. But you can have the most well-maintained vehicle, but if it's not driven well, they still won't be safe. And what are we trying to prevent? Obviously, preventing crashes and incidents, which at best cause congestion and are irritating to road users, including ourselves, and at worst, kill people. I hope you found that useful, and thank you for your time.
Hi, my name's Scott Walker from Visa Global Logistics. I'm currently based in Sydney, Australia. Today we'll be talking about Visa's in-house designed truck tablet technology and how it assists us within our day-to-day operations within our trucking fleet. We're now considered Australia's largest privately owned freight forwarder and the 3rd largest container carrier in Australia. So the InTruck tablet technology, which our drivers use on a daily basis and featured in all our trucks in Australia and New Zealand, helps us with our safety-related procedures, our pre-start inspections, fitness for work, and mass management. I'm going to go through the process each driver does on a daily basis, just to give you an understanding of how it works and how it assists us within our business. Obviously, there's a login page. Each driver has their own unique username and password. Once a driver starts his shift, he must confirm that he's fit for duty, he's not impaired by fatigue, drugs or alcohol, and has not exceeded the 12 hours work in the previous 24-hour period under our fatigue management laws. They also need to confirm that they have the appropriate license and that hasn't been expired or suspended for any reason. There's a digital signature required and they must confirm before proceeding. The next stage, they need to choose their equipment. We have a wide variety of equipment and trailer combinations in our fleet, so it's particularly important that they choose the right fleet items and the right trailer combination, because that assists with our maintenance and mass management. Here they also enter the current odometer, so we can track odometer and our diesel fuel rebates. They then commence the pre-start inspection. You'll note on this screen as well, there is a pre-start inspection for our container forklift. So if it's a container forklift driver, they will be selecting a different inspection, which would be for a reach stacker. In this case, we're going to look at the truck inspection, because this particular instance, we're using a prime mover and two trailers being a Super B. They then commence to work through a detailed list of items. There's 18 total checks as they go through the page and check. If they find any issues as they're doing their pre-start inspection, they simply hit the X button. They can then choose whether it's the truck, trailer, or both items that are affected, and they can then begin to type in the issue. In this particular case, I've written in trailer tyres needed on positions 9 and 10 need replacing soon. This is then sent. This would be considered a minor or deferred instance, so it won't ground the equipment. If they hit major, it will then ground the equipment and the driver must go and choose another item and start the inspection again with a new piece of fleet equipment. This information, as soon as it's completed and signed off, is sent directly to our operation and fleet team for notification either to a supplier or to have fixed on site. At the end of the pre-start inspection, after they work through the 18 items, they then need to submit and sign off that they have completed this inspection correctly. Once this is done, they then actually have access to our main tablet menu. Here's where they can receive their job for the day, their first job. They can look at dehiring containers. They can do another pre-start inspection if they're changing equipment. They can also have access to our fatigue management and run sheet systems. I'll talk about the fatigue management next. On the right-hand side of this page also is part of our mass management. So this is telling the driver what his allowed mass limits are with his current combination. It's telling him he can operate under HML, which is high mass limits, or CML, which is concessional mass limits, and tells him what his allowable axle splits are and his gross vehicle mass that is available. We've built into the tablet technology our own fatigue management portal. So this tells the drivers when they're due for their breaks, allows them to log their breaks, and also allows them to review their previous 14 days of work rest hours. In Australia, we have a 14-day period where they can work. It's a rolling fatigue management process. So they are able to go back and look, because if they have overworked certain days, they then need to make sure that they're reducing their hours to make sure over a 14-day period they're not exceeding certain fatigue laws. This page is part of the mass management section. So here a driver can declare what his weights are or what his expected weights are. The system knows the tear of the equipment, being the truck and trailer. It also is our global operating platform, so it knows how heavy the freight that the driver is moving. So he can request the system do an estimation for him to see whether he's going to be over or under his mass limits. He can also type in the weights himself if he's coming off the port or he's got a weighbridge ticket. So it's then considered a verified load for him to place into the system. This particular moment here, he's logged in as CML, so you'll see the weights are 6.5, 17, 21 and 21. But he can, on the next slide here, you can see straight away, he can operate this particular truck at HML, which is high mass limits. They're the highest mass limits we can operate in Australia for this particular combination. So he can then manage his loads and know exactly where he's at, which avoids any sort of issues with loads and compliance. Since we've begun with the tablet technology, we've had some pretty major benefits to the business. There's been a 15% increase in productivity, which moves in through our labour costs as well. We've had 100% driver compliance. Our national compliance audit duration was previously up to 1 week with national auditors from the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator. We're now able to complete this in 1 to 1.5 days. Previously had up to 50 mass non-conformances nationally. This is now down to 5 with over 150 powered units in the fleet. We have reduced driver and equipment related accidents and breakdowns on the road because we're getting to the maintenance and the issues straight away rather than sending equipment which might be suspect to small minor issues on the road. Efficiency, increased productivity leading to growth. And our environmental impacts, we are no longer print any documentation for the driver. So we're saving over 5 reams of paper per day. Real-time tracking and proof of delivery data for deliveries, accurate KPI reporting, and obviously our 100% compliance with chain of responsibility legislation. We've won quite a few awards for our tablet technology, which we're very proud of. Here's a few of the awards that we've won in recent times. This particular lady on the screen, she's actually deaf, and we've been able to employ her. She's 100% deaf because we can now employ her because she can use the tablet technology and be able to have a job and communicate to us through the system. So it's something we're very proud of. Thank you very much for listening. That's all I have for today. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Sarah Plum. I'm the Senior Fleet Officer here at Break the Road Charity. Unfortunately, none of our speakers are available for the live Q&A today. However, we will pass on your questions to our speakers for answering and post any responses in our Global Fleet Champions LinkedIn group. You'll shortly be able to see on the screen our remaining webinars for 2019. Both Break UK and Break New Zealand are running a new vehicle technology webinar, so please sign up whichever works best for you, wherever you are in the world. We will also upload both webinars to our Global Fleet Champions website, so you can view at a later date if you are unable to join. Our final webinar of the year will discuss drivers and mental health, and this is taking place on the 10th of December. Finally, I would like to thank you very much for attending today's webinar and to all of today's presenters. We hope you enjoyed it. The webinar has equipped you with useful information that will help you to work toward a common goal of safe and healthy mobility in fleets. We welcome your feedback, so please do complete our short feedback form, which will appear on your screen once the webinar ends. If you would like to discuss the content of today's webinar further, please join our Global Fleet Champions LinkedIn group. We hope you can join us again soon. Thank you very much.